Here. Haas?
Here.
Landers?
Here.
Rapp?
Here.
Canitas?
Could stand for the pledge of allegiance, please. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I was thinking you this whole.
a motion for approval of the regular meeting agenda, please.
I'll make a motion to approve the regular meeting agenda for the.
And a second. Second. And roll call.
Espinoza?
Yes.
Canitas?
Yes.
Rapp?
Yes.
Landers?
Yes.
Haas?
Yes.
Schrader?
Yes.
And are we going to do anything in our visitor section? Is this where you had slated the presentations or later?
Visitors, I would like to have Principal Bailey do an introduction for us under our visitor section.
Awesome.
Hi, everybody. This is Beth LeBeau. She will be next year's assistant principal at Northbrook. Super excited. We had a great interview, great meeting. She met Brad. It just works. So you know when you know. So she will be coming to visit, I think, a little bit when she's done with her school year. She's been at Streeter North Lawn for 21 years.
Yes.
As a teacher. She's been at one school for 21 years, which is a phenomenal thing and unheard of anymore. So she's willing to kind of make that emotional break, which is very difficult. I did that and I understand, for an administrative position. So I'm super excited. I have loved every assistant principal I've had, and it's been a riot to it's been a great joy to work with eager administrators and then see them go off to whatever it is they want to. So I'm excited to do it again.
Well, welcome.
Welcome.
Nice to meet you. Thanks for
Very
coming.
good, very good. And then I think that everybody else that's in attendance is here for later discussions. Angel, are you here for later conversation?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah,
All
perfect.
right, perfect. Well, welcome everyone for being here. It's exciting to see people in the audience.
Yes.
Could we have a motion for consent agenda, please?
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda, including 5.1 disposition of minutes for April 2024, 5.2 payment of bills, 5.3 district treasurer's report, 5.4 in-person activity fund report, cafeteria report, and 5.5 personnel report.
In a second? Second. And roll call.
Schrader?
Yes.
Haas?
Yes.
Espinoza?
Yes.
Landers?
Yes.
Rapp?
Yes.
Canitas?
Yes. Okay, moving on to 6.1, we had one FOIA request.
Yeah, from the Painters District Council wanting to know what we were spending on paint, so that was interesting. I don't know.
Okay. Not highly contested there.
That's good. Word's getting out that we're painting. so
Right,
that's
there you
good.
go. They're like, look, this district hasn't painted in like 2 decades. What is going on?
got the Sherman-Williams.
Painted all that tile. They
Right?
found out.
Oh my goodness. All right, we'll move on to item 6.2, your superintendent report and presentation.
Yeah, I want to build on a couple of things before we get to presentations. We had a concert here this week, and the high school music department was here and helping out with that. And our people did great, and their people did great, and the kids did great. And just all the conversations that we have and continue to have, in the spirit of cooperation and growth, in that togetherness that we're having with the high school. Really those partnerships, I just want to make sure that we're, acknowledging that and acknowledging them, and we really appreciate them for sure. Also want to take a quick minute to let everybody know that our CSS committee is still continuing. We had another meeting maybe 2 weeks ago, maybe 3 sometime, and more time on what we're doing with respect to data collection and benchmarking, and how that's being implemented. Again, that's been a committee that's really borne some great fruit and really doesn't show any signs of slowing down. There are always things that we need to continue to have conversations about what we're doing, how we're doing it, how we're implementing it, and making sure that that we're having the best experience, the best common, consistent experience for our kids as possible. Another big thank you Mendota Fire and Police have just been fantastic. They've been very responsive to anytime something happens. They're here in the blink of an eye, and so I definitely want to make sure that we're sending a thank you to them. If you didn't see my latest blog on financial stability, but I thought that was, you know, a really good message to get out. You know, people see the different things that are going on. You know, tonight we're going to talk about, you know, spending money on, you know, summer of '25 HVAC stuff. And we're going to spend, you know, money on our, you know, new English language arts curriculum, and you know, those are big numbers and lots of zeros. And so we want to make sure that we're also communicating that we're doing it within a very conscientious financial plan and outlay. And then lastly, the other thing I had was, we just completed a student survey with, I think, what, 6th, 7th, and 8th graders. We had about maybe half of the kids respond with respect to some different activities that they would like to see. And so you'll be getting that kicked out and get some really good responses. So yeah, we'll be meeting here in the next week or two to kind of put our heads together to see if we can't make some traction, move forward with a couple of things.
You have some accolades to share from your sports, don't you?
Oh my gosh, I'm so excited. I don't know Heather's gonna sleep. Tomorrow, 4 kids are going to state. 3 compete tomorrow, and then 1 on Saturday, and also 1 from Friday on Saturday. We did a big send-off today. Just excited. Yeah, I can't even. So Heather's gonna be sending out, it'll come out on the district-wide email, the live link and then the times that they compete. So I have a feeling there may be some classrooms playing that tomorrow. So I'm really excited to hear the screaming and yelling, and super cool. And,
It was cool last week, the live on the races.
yeah.
Even being down there and being able to watch the kids race, so it'll be exciting in your classes, because it wasn't ours.
Yeah.
Very cool. Congrats to those kiddos.
Okay, so our first presenter, Scott Engstrom from GRP Wegman, is here with his young protege.
Hi, everybody.
I wore my bow tie. Just
Yeah,
because
where's your
I
bow
knew
The
tie?
one
it was
day
gonna
I
be
decided
windy.
not to wear it, you know.
It won't be me
Can't show
talking
you
either,
are,
so it will be.
Now that Emery's not
Morgan
here, I don't have anybody to push me and step up my game.
We don't
so-
know Morgan well enough to mess with him like you, Scott.
You don't know
We don't know
what?
him well enough to like mess with him. like
Well,
you do.
trust me, whatever you're gonna mess with, I'm sure I've been worse. So. I often
Good
have
to
to do
know.
the check, like, oh, was that too much? Anyway, I appreciate you guys letting us come in today. This will actually be Morgan's first presentation ever to a school board, so he is going to be presenting the information, going over it with you. If I think there's anything there, you can obviously look over at me, but I appreciate you guys letting us do this and giving him a chance to talk in front of you guys today.
Thank you, guys. All right, so today we're going to be presenting 2 packages for the HVAC improvement for the Mendota district. So I'll start with package A. So package A, the HVAC, so there will be a demo for 15 classroom unit events as required for the new HVAC. Also, the 11 remaining unit events will be demoed from 6th, 7th, and 8th grade wings. There will be 2 steam boilers that will be demoed, as well as the piping, the condensate tanks, and the air compression system within the boiler room. Also, there will be installation of 13 new classroom package unit ventilators, as well as an installation of new high-efficiency steam-to-steam systems as well. There will be installation of a hanging gas furnace for the boiler room as well, electronic heaters as supplemental heat for the storage room areas also. And then there will be a CME, which is the central mechanical equipment, will be placed into the main office area as well. For the 6th and 7th and 8th grade wings as well, there will be proper disposal of the angled ceilings as well as the glass sections. And then we'll install Gibson wallboard to replace the glass sections. There's also 2x2 acoustic drop ceiling will be placed in those sections as well.
So if you can envision the 5th grade wing in the model that we went to, where we have one unit that heats and it's on a wall between two classrooms, and it heats and cools both classrooms. That we implemented that model in the 5th grade wing, and once we get the bugs out, it's working really well. We also looked at that model over at Blackstone on the south section, which is the 1st grade side of things. We looked at that model as well, and that's working really well. And so it will be going to that exact same model, completely taking our boiler offline in Northbrook. And as we've had conversations, trying to get through a winter and keep the heat on in Northbrook is a challenge.
Yeah. Then I'll continue going through package A with for Blackstone Elementary School as well. So for package A, there will be a demo and removal of mezzanine AHU system steam coil and associated piping. There will be a demo of the one steam boiler piping and condensate tanks. The installation also of new hot water coil and connect to the existing ductwork. And then there will be installation of new control valves to integrate the existing BAS system and provide and install a new hot, high efficiency water boiler as well. And then package B, go through there's just 3 things that are missing from package B, or that are taken out from package B. And that is the demo of the 11 remaining unit ventilators from the 6th, 7th, and 8th grade wings. Also, the demo of the 2 steam boilers, piping, and the condensate tanks in that area as well. And then at Blackstone in package B, the demo of the 1 steam boiler, piping, and condensate tanks as well. And then to get down to the pricing, package A, the total is $2,665,512. Package B is $2,538,080. The difference between those 2 options is $127,429. So I just wanted to note that for you guys as well.
And what do we have at Lincoln that this doesn't require anything?
So when we did our work in the summer of whenever that was, 22,
The AC summer?
the AC summer, with the work that got done at Lincoln, we were able to completely take the boiler offline. And so on the old side of Lincoln, the original side, we were able to update all of the heating and cooling so that it's all new and there's no boiler. And on the addition side, then it was the geothermal system, which is I would say it's nearing end of life. It's probably got, with a little luck, maybe as much as another decade. It's 17 years old, give or take. And so, once this round of projects is done, all of our HVAC equipment should be in really good shape for the next decade. We should be set up for success. One of the kind of interesting caveats with this is, with this work that's being done in the newer section of Blackstone, we're taking the old boiler offline, but now we're actually going to have 2 small boilers in the mezzanine for the new section. All of the piping is good, all of the majority of the controls and all of the, louvers, is that a word? There we go. All the mechanicals within it aren't that old. And so they're still in really good shape. And so in this particular model, and it having a 2 boiler system, if one goes out, we can still provide enough heat to be able to heat classrooms. And so even though I'm not a huge fan of boiler technology, it's by far the right solution for us in that half of the building.
So is like the main difference between the 2, like just leaving the old boilers there and?
Yeah, so
Yeah, sorry.
that's one of the big differences is the boiler, after taking it offline, leaving it in place of the boiler room. That's the main.
Is that like,
Yeah.
does that bother us, like, to just leave it there? Like, could we use that space?
Well, in 4 or
is
5
that
years, the plan would be that Dustin has some things, some free time on his hands.
Slowly,
And he would love to be able to take a blowtorch in there and take it out piece by piece.
Okay.
I guess at the end of the day, we would always need storage, and you technically can still store some stuff in there, but is it worth 127 grand to demo all that stuff?
Your recommendation is not made.
My recommendation is not A.
And I feel like on the last meeting when we talked through these projects, we really were focused on Northbrook as opposed to Blackstone. Is there, like, Blackstone's a much smaller project, but is there the same level of urgency with that older portion of Blackstone as there was with Northbrook?
So I would say no. Northbrook is by far the most urgent. The mechanicals at Blackstone are in better shape, way better shape than Northbrook. But there are some kind of systemic issues at Blackstone that this work will be able to help it be a much better heating and cooling system.
And are there benefits to doing them at the same time, supplies-wise, or?
That's fine. I would say there are benefits to doing them at the same time. Not necessarily on the supply, but the fact that we'll have the mobility of the company here and the amount of people that we would have here to be able to do it. And ultimately what it does do is it accomplishes that goal that you guys had set out years ago at this point, is to get rid of all steam. Because if you leave Blackstone, you're still gonna have a very large steam boiler that is really operating a very small piece of equipment. It's way oversized, and then you still have the steam system.
So will it not be steam with the 2-boiler system?
There'll be
or-
hot water.
Everything will be hot water.
Okay.
Yeah, it's unique that you still have this cross thing in the new wing. I don't know why they put steam coils in it when they did, but they did. And now you guys are correcting what was done years ago, probably before most of you were even on this board.
So what's the difference if we didn't do the Blackstone?
Like, what's the round?
What's
approximate
like,
number, you know?
like how much less is that gonna be if we decided to not do Blackstone
I
at
did
this?
not prepare for that
I'm sorry.
question, but I can get you that information. That's not a
Originally,
problem
we
at all.
started speaking and we had mentioned Northbrook mainly alone and that we were pretty much at the $2 million mark. And that was scary, but that was where our heads were at in the beginning, and now it's creeping there.
Well, we've talked about, how to do this in a measured way and how to make sure that there's a plan in place. When you look at, I had a conversation with our bonding expert, Kevin, and to look at what our bonding capacity is, because last year, we bonded out another 2 years. And if we were to bond out another 2 years next spring, we should be able to bond for a little over $2.5 million. And so all of this work fits within that bonding cycle, the ability to pay for it. We're not, getting out over our skis. We're staying, within the cycle that we've had for years.
And then I also see one other question, under Northbrook, there's like a option 1 and option 2. And option 2 has the X's by it, or I don't know what the difference is there or what that
So,
is.
option 1 is just off the table now. Option 2, that's the central mechanical equipment that's gonna be placed in the office area, like the main office area.
Were you asking what the X's were for in the two options?
Yeah.
Yeah, kind of.
It's what's included and what isn't. So if you notice in package B, the only thing that's not included with X's there is demo of equipment. It's
Oh,
demo
no,
of the.
yeah.
No, like a
So I
bottle
think I was
yes.
more, I was more asking, I think you were kind of,
The option 1 down there, not the package A.
Are you talking
so,
about?
right
yeah,
above
yeah,
sixth
those
grade
2
wing.
little options
Good.
under Northbrook.
Yep.
So
Option
option
one
1
versus
doesn't
option
have
2.
X's at all.
It doesn't because it should have been eliminated off of this sheet.
Okay.
We looked at another option because we were trying to look at all options that you guys
Gotcha.
could. That option was another like $250,000 and it
Okay.
didn't make any financial sense for savings or anything else. It was just,
Okay.
we wanted to know what was out there.
Okay.
So the glass in the classrooms on the interior of the 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, in those 2 wings, that glass is straight up and down on the inside. The angled is in the hallway, and on the inside, it's straight up and down. I don't know, does it say angled?
Yeah, it says angled
Yeah, so
ceiling
that's,
glass.
would be
Yeah, because it's that.
vertical.
It's that, and then in the classrooms it's straight, because they used to hang,
Yeah.
anchor charts on that one, back in the day,
Okay.
and posters, but yeah.
Because we already got rid of the angled glass in the hallway.
This summer we're doing
It's already part of the package we approved.
that. Yep, we've already, yep.
I think what it was, it's angled ceiling, straight glass.
Correct.
Mhm.
So your
Right.
ceiling is angled.
ceiling is
In the
angled.
rooms. I don't know if people have noticed that, it angles
Oh,
down towards.
it does
the
say
windows.
angled ceiling.
Angled
Yes, it's an
ceiling,
angled
straight
ceiling.
glass, yeah.
Yes.
Which is confusing as heck because you got angled glass, straight ceiling in the hallway. It's the reverse in the hallway.
Northbrook, confusing, what?
It was
No.
done for 50 years.
Would you say that the largest portion of this though really is up in this HVAC stuff and not in like whether or not we sit here and decide to replace the drop ceiling or not replace
No.
the drop ceiling?
The only thing to consider that isn't in here is if you do the drop ceiling is the potential if you guys wanted to do lighting at the same time. Because we are doing the lighting in the hallway with the drop ceiling, but at this time we did leave out the lighting. I can bring that information so that you can see that, or I can break this up too so that you guys can see that as well. if
Cause
that's
I think we did like the idea of going to the lighting. I'm just wondering if the lighting plus drop ceiling maybe needs to be separate.
the next phase or
Yeah.
something down the road.
'Cause I would
Okay.
hate to do the drop ceiling and then come back and do lighting and
Do lighting
mess
later
that back up.
rather than one.
Yep.
Okay.
And is there the grants for the lighting like there was
Yep.
last summer
Yep.
to pay for some of that?
Yep.
So yeah, can you get us like what it looks like for lighting plus drop ceiling separate from these?
Yeah.
And then the breakdown of Blackstone separate from.
The breakdown.
Northbrook.
Northbrook, breakdown Blackstone, and then within Northbrook on the breakdown, drop ceiling with lights.
Yeah.
Got it. We can do that. That's no problem.
And I think we're definitely gonna stay within package B, so we don't, when you break it down.
Okay,
we can
so
just
don't
focus
worry
on that
about the-
column.
okay,
Yeah,
that sounds
unless anyone
perfect.
wanted to see it
No.
the other way, okay.
Way too much.
Cool, thank you.
Good stuff.
Thank you,
No
guys.
problem.
Thank you, gentlemen.
See you. Thanks for
Next
letting us
time
do
you come
this.
back, you gotta have the bow tie.
I will. Yes, ma'am.
Poor guy.
I'm just saying.
Not coming back.
Oh my God.
I thought it was good.
Any other follow-up with that? We good? Till the next time? Our next presentation is going to be by Mr. Pierce and Mrs. Peterson.
How's everybody doing?
Good.
Joey at the sheet square. I think you guys are familiar, curriculum, special ed service director. So what we're talking about is, maybe you guys are aware that when our scores came back in the fall for school report cards, Northbrook became a targeted school. What that means is either as the school as a whole or one of our subsets of kids is basically the bottom 5% of the state. And so we looked into that. We had conversations with different state agencies and reps, and they've been really great walking us through everything. The group that was the subset is special ed kids in Norfolk. And so that's what that first little chart on the we handed out is. So the cut line to be targeted is anything below 35.39. That's the state number. We were at 33.93. And so they were the first, like, it was really close, it wasn't like you're, way off, it was really close, but nonetheless, that's where we were. And the breakdown of that, it's kind of a nice newer thing with the Illinois school report card, they kind of break it down, this little schoolhouse. It breaks down the actual, students with disabilities. So like ELA proficiency, that's the IAR score, and it's none of it is as simple as going like, oh, almost 3%. Like it's a whole weighted metric. Realistically, our scores and our growth for testing pretty on par with what the state expects for any subset. What killed us right off the bat is that bottom right corner, the climate survey. We have not been doing the 5 essential survey. That kind of died out with COVID. No doctor school, we weren't doing it. Wasn't an issue and it wasn't on anybody's radar. Well, that 5% alone would have pushed us over. That's all that is. We had just done that.
We didn't do it.
This year we did.
Oh, okay.
Yes, well, yes.
Okay, wait, I really thought we did.
Yes, well,
I
so,
know you
yeah,
pushed that.
so this is all, this comes out in October, so these are supposed to come out in October. So that was one of the first conversations. Brad's like, how do we fix the zero? That's a great place to go.
So no students took it that year.
No, none, district-wide, and it's usually, I think it's 4th through 8th, maybe it's 3rd through 8th, but it's 4th, okay, I'll trust Holly there. And so this year, everybody did it. We set it up through Tom Slater, mostly at Northbrook, Jeff Strauss over at Lincoln, made sure the kids over there rotated through, I think with Ms. Kleffner, make sure that he did it. And it's not a big, overly cumbersome thing, it's just something that, again, we kind of let die and slip under our school, and it's like anything else, if it's not on your plate, you're not worried about it, and it's not an issue, then you're not thinking about it. Well, it became an issue, and became a realization, okay, we gotta do that, gotta make sure we do that. It's free points. Not only is it feedback from the kids, but it's, it's also free points for the state. These are things that, people look at our school and go, oh, this is what their school's about. Well, yeah, that's a piece of it, and it just was incomplete information that we were giving people. We don't want people to think that about us. The other thing that kind of stands out there is that chronic absenteeism. Don't confuse that with truancy. Absenteeism just refers to missing basically 10% of the school year, excused or unexcused. And unfortunately, nationally and statewide, that's a huge problem these days. But particularly among our subset for IUP kids, that is an issue, and that's a conversation we've been having a little bit of, trying to figure out what we do. Obviously, we have truancy officers that contact. Their caseloads are huge. But it is one of those things, how are we going to get these kids to come to school?
And we even sometimes do something just as simple as a call home. And so a lot of times that's just a call home to a parent that says, hey, student success is linked to student attendance. And just, anything that we can do to help you with that. And then, you will see an increase maybe on that specific student on a call home, just start to send, and then it'll sometimes drop back off, sometimes it'll stable off a little bit with attendance.
Well, and I would have to think that our mentor program would fall right into that wheelhouse as well, with
Yes.
continue to have those, build those relationships, and that of course is something that is new this year as well.
Well, and that's just it. I mean, there was already things in place completely separate from this, like the mentor program, that we're excited about, and again, it's paying dividends. We, Paula can talk about, not tonight, it's a busy night. But she can talk about, like, again, the things that they're seeing that, it's paying off. We identified 2 other things. Obviously, one, first, do the survey. 2, create a culture that celebrates and values testing. That was one of the biggest things we've been talking about throughout the year. We've never been a big, test. And the reality is, we need to do better. And we started that conversation. We really kind of, rebuilt that through CSS committee, through Paul Pride, Spartan Pride committee. Really, pushing, okay, if we're giving the test, we have to give the test, right? We have to do all these things. Well, we might as well get the value out of it so the kids understand the importance of it, using that data, celebrating them and their achievements. For example, we've got some access test results back. 12 kids in the district will be exiting out of ESL programming, which is huge. Just at Northbrook alone, 35 kids jumped by 0.5 or higher on it. It's like, it's a test. Nobody was excited to take the test. They're like, oh, we have to take another test. But we really worked with them. They did awesome. And we're going to celebrate that. And IAR is the same idea here. Of course, this is the big one that everybody in grades 3 on up have to take. So create a culture around that they see the value. We understand that, yeah, you're not going to see your scores right away. They don't see the scores until August. But it is one of those things that it matters. We've put in better test prep. We ordered some books from Lumos, one of the premier IAR test prep. So teachers and teams have been using that, utilizing that for test prep. Again, we don't want to be, and we can't be a school that teaches to the test. Teachers will hate that, kids will hate that. But what we're doing is, doing things we already do, prepare kids strategies for test taking, which you do for everything. That's common sense stuff. We're really utilizing some of that test prep though to go, okay, this is how you attack a reading question where you're going to have to use comprehension. This is how you're going to attack this math problem. And it's one of those things that anecdotally, just through conversations, I know the teachers really love that. They thought it worked really well. The kids, from again, their responses, the teacher responses from the kids was that it seemed to work really well for the IAR. So again, it's always like, it's a hurry up and wait. We want to see those scores so we can figure out, start planning and make our next steps. But it's a big part of
Special
it.
ed, like Tyler was saying too, is just test exposure. So sometimes kids with IEPs struggle, and so we expose them to the test with practice tests, as Tyler was stating. It's like a test nav or for kids to go and practice. And they have practice too with how do I use the calculator? You know, kids with IEPs have different disabilities and sometimes they struggle, and so they might need to know how to use the, how to answer mask, and so teachers have access, special teachers, to go in and give kids practice tests, and they can practice using all the tools and what that format looks like, and just to give them that test exposure to then help with, you know, doing a better job on your test.
You know, format is such a big word, right? Because all the standardized test questions and what that experience is, it very much has a very specific look and feel to it. And so our teachers now can cover their same content, but they're gonna format it in a way that is very similar to what the kids are gonna see. And so we're still able to assess the same material. We're not teaching anything different. We're just now giving them the skill of what is this gonna look like? How do I approach it? And so, again, that's just setting your kids up for success in anything that we do.
Well, it's like, yeah, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I was gonna say, and then too, the other thing is accommodations are really big. And so if we have a kid has an IEP, it's an individualized plan for that kid to help them be successful. And maybe part of their plan is they struggle with anxiety and they need a small group to take the test. Well, we provide that within our education setting, which then in turn, when I take the IR, I get the small group. And so special ed staff have really worked on looking at what those accommodations are. I've shared different documents with them to really hone in on what each kid needs individualized to make sure that we have it for their classroom assessments, which then will transfer over into the Illinois Assessment of Readiness.
Well, and that's what she was saying too, with like the test prep and stuff, with like the test nav going and actual practicing those skills. So, you know, it doesn't matter even if you do use a calculator in the classroom, well, on the IR, you're gonna use theirs, and you have to be familiar with it. The last thing you wanna do is have the formatting of the test or anything like that be the reason the kid's not performing well. So the familiarity with the program and stuff is a huge part of that.
And you don't wanna be,
Yeah, sorry.
you don't wanna be in a situation where what you're actually testing is how well can the kid take the test? How well can the kid manipulate what's going on in front of it? You wanna get to whether or not do they know the content that you're asking.
Well, and that's been a big thing, again, this is not IR, but like for access testing, we have to, you know, you have to talk as part of it. We found that kids did not want to talk in front of their peers, they're embarrassed. So we did things about like getting kids into smaller sections, we had dividers. This year they really wrote a program called ELLIE, where part of the normal part of their curriculum in RTI and MTSS is to get on a headset and have to talk and explain. And we found our speaking scores went up quite a bit. Well, it's because you're practicing and you're familiarizing, and it's no longer this foreign concept, it's just a part of what you do in the classroom that's normal. And then when you see it later on a test, well, it's just what we do, it's normal.
Another big one we utilize in the special ed world is the extended time. And so you can get extended time if you have an individualized education plan. And that might be for a student who has a specific learning disability, who maybe their reading skills are slower, or it takes them a little more time to digest the information and they have to slow it down. And so then we can look for giving a child extended time, which then will help them with their IAR test as well.
So are all these strategies that you're talking about as far as accommodations, like additional time, dividers, like exposure, is that, none of that was in place previous, like these are all strategies that you're implementing?
So, like IEP accommodations, that's something that every year they go through annual revals, and when they create the IEPs,
Right.
those are in place. I think I would
We're just
argue that we've
beefing
been,
it up.
we're just making sure that, we're making sure 100% of, especially because we've had a lot of new staff, that they're familiar with it and they're working with the kids, and, because, even if in another district, what another district does versus what we do, I just want to make sure that they're familiar with everything, so that when the kid does have an issue, that they know how it works. Like the dividers and stuff, that's new this year, at least for the access testing and stuff like that. Before, Lauren Merkins, I can speak for Northbrook particularly, she would, got to the point where she'd like, hey, okay, write down a list of like the 3 or 4 people you'd be willing to talk in a room with. So did small groups, so you test those kids, because maybe they wouldn't be as awkward talking in a room with their friends, even though they're not talking to each other, just being in the room, not embarrassed as much. That became a nightmare for scheduling, when you're scheduling 90+ kids around a normal schedule of stuff. So again, we're trying different things, and it seems, again, proofs in the pudding. It seemed to work really well this year. And it sounds almost, I don't want to say stupid, but like so basic of what, just having a divider. Well, because that's not normally what middle school kids do. We don't, it's not like little, not your test, you're looking at my test. Okay, that's not going to help you looking at somebody else's test. It's adaptive. So like they just having a simple divider became a great way just to kind of isolate them. Because again, you're going to have a headset on, especially when you're speaking. But just the fact that for these to be able to see their peers, that was this intimidation factor. And some kids could vocalize that and say that, I don't like it. Others, you just kind of get that vibe. And so it's just solving problems as we can. And again, seems to have done a good job this year.
And Tyler and I worked together because he had come in and he said, hey, we got to look at this for alternative access. And I was like, oh, I don't think we're using that. Oh, we need to make sure we're putting that in on their IEPs. And so we worked together on that and shared it out with the teachers too, to make sure that was something else that we're making sure that we are focusing on that individualized kid through their access with their IEP to getting the testing that they need.
So in what ways are you, it seems like a lot of what you're talking about with where you anticipate the cause of this score not being where it should be for that specific population. Are you really feeling like it's the test and the format of the test and the taking of the test and not a reflection on the knowledge?
And I don't want to speak just as, obviously she's more an expert on the special ed population than I am. I'd argue it's a little bit of everything. Again, really our scores this year compared to previous years are not far off where they've been. Again, I would argue most schools, most states are down from where they were pre-pandemic, so they're a little lower, but nothing that askew. Again, the simplest thing is we had just done that 5 essential surveys, we would have been off. But again, it gave us that little spotlight, so we're looking at that and trying to find those things that, how do we go from what we had to even better? So again, making sure that the teachers are getting the right accommodations, because again, I don't know how familiar with special ed, there's a lot of kind of generic accommodations you can give somebody. Extended time, small group. Okay, that's great, and that's, we put them in place, but that kid's never used small group because they've never needed it, or they've never advocated for it. That's something put them in that for an IR because it's high stakes. We have to, take that could really throw a kid off. And so it's that conversation of, is that really an appropriate accommodation for that kid? And making sure that that's true and faithful what they need. And if it is, we need to be making sure we're better using that across the board, because it's going to help their knowledge acquisition and basically express their knowledge and show on a test or throughout the year, not just a high stakes test.
So we're talking about one test, we're talking about the state IAR test. Do we have other data that gets to the question of how are we educating all students and students with special needs in particular? Do we have other data that would help us?
So we use FastBridge, that's the benchmark, and it's one of those things and that's why I have the snapshot there. And so because of the special ed population, 3rd through 8th grade, that's what I pulled here, just because again, that's the IAR testing as well. Pulled 5 special ed kids at random from each grade, and you can kind of see their fall, winter, and spring benchmark scores here. And it's exactly kind of what you expect, right? Some kids showed a little gain, some kids kind of stayed the same. And again, this goes to that test culture we're trying to build of, hey, you're gonna take this benchmark test, reading and math. When we use it, that helps us place eventually for things like tiered interventions. We're gonna use that information to, figure things out, help plan, figure out what weaknesses we have going on, all those things. The challenge is always gonna be, and I actually put a nice little circle around it. If you look at 8th grade reading, the same kid dropped almost 75 points in the winter benchmark. We didn't do anything to him. He didn't, if something happened that day where he decided not to care, he checked out, he decided to rush, he didn't have breakfast, he had broke with his girlfriend. It could be 100 different things. And that's always the hardest part. These are all data points, but at the end of the day, it's, kind of you're getting to you're looking at the curriculum stuff. We're really excited about the new reading curriculum. We've known wonders, has not been a perfect fit, especially for our youngest K2 group. We spent a lot of time and we found the new reading curriculum that's going to really reinforce the foundational reading, science of reading approach. We're really excited about that. So I think it's a foundational shift a little bit. Again, arguably the kids are not anything more than anything else. It was just outliers. So again, chronic absenteeism is 20% of that score. So that, those are things that we don't control that, but we're trying to do things to get those kids here more.
So when I look at these graphs, the top blue line is the fall score, on the bottom.
Yeah, so like
yellow
student
line
A is one.
Is the spring score.
Yeah.
So it looks to me, as I look at this, and again, this is in comparison with a nationally normed population, it looks to me like the blue lines, that from the blue line to the yellow line, that there's, in most cases, some growth there.
Yeah.
Is that?
Well, and that's
is that what
the
you're seeing?
last little box table, whatever you want to call it, that's on the back of your first sheet. So that's breaking down again, looking at, this is actually 2nd through 8th who do Fast Bridge all year round. Those are the percentages that show growth fall to spring per kid. So, for example, like 2nd grade, 91% of kids grew from the fall benchmark to the spring benchmark, which we just finished in the last couple of weeks.
This is all kids?
All kids.
Here?
Across, so
But these
that
are
includes
not.
special ed kids.
Okay.
Yeah, that was just trying to show you a snapshot of just special ed kids.
So why did, Tyler, sorry, to
Yes.
interrupt. So why were we guessing that the 8th grade's 44% math? Like, because like personally, from having taught 3rd grade, I would have thought that like the 5th and 6th, because that's like, you know what I mean? Like, that's the COVID group, you know what I mean, that didn't get that foundational addition and subtraction, you know what I mean? Like, why do we think that the 8th grade math is 44% compared to everything else?
I would
And what are
think-
we gonna do to
Yeah.
prepare them for Mendota High School or wherever they go? Because honestly, that like really
No, there.
floors me.
I would say it's twofold, and part of that I would say is the COVID problem. Those were the 4th graders when COVID hit. So that's when math really starts taking off, and you start building those complex concepts. So 4th grade, they missed the whole last 2.5 months of 4th grade. Then 5th grade was that alternate, that first year we did an A-Day, B-Day stuff at Northbrook. So, and it wasn't like we did the best we could, but let's be honest, it was not the best of anything. It was the best we could. And so I would argue that's part of that. It's also one of those things where 8th graders in general, at least looking at our own score of history, are the most likely ones to start to check out on state testing. Particularly this 8th grade group, you're talking about they had to do the PSAT, they've done Fast Bridge multiple times, they had to do the kids survey, is that what it's called, kids questionnaire? Kids questionnaire, if you have to take access, you take an access.
They had to take the
You have to take the ISA science
They had to
test,
take the-
IAR.
So when,
They had
So
to
that's,
take the
I think it's a
requirement.
little bit of test burnout for them.
okay, so when did we test these guys late for all these tests? You know what I mean? Like, cause I know personally, like, when I was in LaSalle, we always tested late. But then now in both districts that I work with now, we tested the first week we could.
You mean for
Because
the
we-
IAR stuff?
Yeah,
Well,
because
so
we
like,
didn't want
this is
them.
like, yeah, this is Fast Bridge data, which was
Okay.
just done.
Yeah,
what,
I'm
a year and a
just-
half ago?
Yeah, we test as late as we can
Yeah.
to
Okay.
get the most content in.
Okay.
Well, and that's real, when you're looking at the IAR stuff, I don't care when you get the test, whether it's the first week or last week, it's just the nature of things, there's gonna be things that you didn't cover. It's just the nature
No, I
of
understand that.
every grade you look at, yeah.
So can I speak to that 8th grade? Because this was a very frustrating year for me with these 8th graders.
No, I'm just kinda wondering
They
why
had
it's
to take,
44%.
3 benchmark tests. They had to take the PSAT, they had to take IAR, ISA, they had to take the Illinois Youth Survey, but then the state mandated that they take this other science test, that 50 random kids for a half a
Oh,
day.
the name, I forgot about the name.
And they,
Yeah, how could you? My gosh. I mean, so these, by the time they got to IAR, they had taken all of those other ones.
And-
And between November and March, they had taken them all. So do you think by the time they got to IAR that they were like, woohoo, here comes another one? It was a lot this year for the 8th graders. It's the most they've ever taken in the building.
What are those other scores then? Some of those other testing, like what did the PSAT come back surprisingly?
It did. It comes back individual. So just for each of them, and then we just pass them out, and then I sit down, I get the scores. Brad was explaining them to me. It looks very different than IAR. Very, it's like, it was
But that
very.
wasn't alarming.
It was very, well, it wasn't, you know, it's a whole different test, and it
Yeah.
looks
Right.
completely different, and their 8th grade year
And it's
is
for something
there.
else.
What?
It's meant to predict something else
Yes,
as well.
and so when they take it in 8th grade, they didn't used to. Their first PSAT was in 9th grade, and now it's become an 8th grade test as well. So when they see it, it's just a really good look at a different type of test. Everything about it is different. In general, I could confirm with the high school, but I think their growth between 8th and 9th grade on that test is great.
Yep.
So, which is the point of it, but they get a good look at it.
Yeah.
So then with this 8th grade bubble, was their 7th grade year that bad, where 2/3 of them were not?
So.
I don't have that data, I could go back and look at it, just we were doing that,
So let's,
this kind of
let's,
record
let's
last year.
take a look at what these numbers mean, right? We have 2nd through 8th grade, and we have the percentage of kids that had some sort of growth. Like, that doesn't just mean that they know more, it means that they knew more in comparison to their nationally normed counterparts, right? And so in any given environment, if your score here is 50%, that would be average. That would mean that half of your kids are gaining on the national norms and half of your kids are losing a little bit of ground to the national norms, right? And so for 2nd grade reading to have 91% of our kids gain on the national norm, that's amazing. That tells me that we're doing a ton of really good things. The fact that the 8th graders are really closer to average, does that mean that there isn't something that we need to definitely continue to have these conversations, and we need to continue to unpack this, for sure. But-
Especially because it wasn't that many years ago that we sat around this table when we were first talking with the high school about our students not being prepared when they hit high school math.
And I think that's what Brad talked to about that CSS committee that we've started. We've made some good gains in there with what we're looking at, and it's all buildings. It's special, it's everyone kind of coming together and then looking at those bigger issues to say, what can we do better? And that's what spearheaded Tyler with the new reading and the new math. I mean, there's a lot of that coming into, which I think is very beneficial.
It's just such a major outlier, it's like
No, yeah.
half of the other ones are.
Well, and I
There
think
has to
and
be
it
something.
goes back to a little bit, like we talk about, like, you know, we have not had a test culture, and so try to reinstall that. 8th graders are gonna be the most jaded kids in the district for us. They're like, okay, yeah, we're gonna be test takers, not like, and again, those who've had older junior high kids, like, they care if you can convince them why it matters. And again, IR, if they care, it's because it's largely intrinsic at this point, because they're not going to see the results of that. It's not going to impact them here. They're going on to the high school. Why do they try a little harder maybe on the PSAT? Not only is it test something different, but it's also high school. You know, that's like the first dipping of the toe into the high school thing. They're excited about that, and that's a much cooler idea than taking Fastbridge for, take it 3 times. They've been taking it since. Second, third grade.
We utilize the Fastbridge when we're looking for our data teams. Paula just met, I think, this week and did her data dig. And she's using that data to determine, okay, who's going tier 2, who's going tier 3. 8th grade kids, when they know that in 7th grade, they're like, okay, I better do good, or I don't want to go to they don't call it title, but it's like title reading and math, it's extra support in math. By 8th grade, you're moving on. You don't have to have test culture. You know why? Because it's not going to matter what you score. You're not going to go to a special extra help reading group or math group. You're going to high school.
I would argue though that if it's nationally their peers, those are all 8th grade peers. They're all going through those same things.
Yeah.
So if we've got 60% of them doing better and making higher gains than we are, there's got to be something that
To
is
look at.
contributing.
And we're talking about this PSAT that we never administered it. Well, let's do something to make them want to do good on it. You know what I mean? Like reward them. You know what I mean? If they do good on it, so that me personally, if I know I do well on a test and I'm going to get a reward out of it, like I'm going to do better on it. Like that's just me. You know what I mean? We all do that. Like if I know I do a good job on something, I'm going to get a reward out of it. let's think of some avenues and ways that we can, whether they're in 8th grade or not, or they were 4th graders when they were COVID, let's try to like get them to, because you know what, in 4 years, the high school's gonna be like, that's a group that's graduating and they're ready, you know what I mean, to go out in careers and they're not gonna be ready to go.
So maybe I'm misunderstanding what these numbers are. Is this, because the way I read it, it's saying like 91% improve on their own score from the first test to the second test?
First to the third.
First
But
to
it,
third.
as Brad's mentioned, so it's all the national norms. So it's because it's adaptive, and so it's taken in the national norm comparison automatically. So
I still don't get it. I'm
So
sorry.
like.
I don't
so-
get what he,
okay.
like, he made it confusing to me.
Okay,
I
so,
guess.
okay, so let's say.
Data is confusing, it is.
For sure,
It's-
for sure. So let's say that when, that I'm student A, and when I took the test in the fall, I scored at the 40th percentile. Okay?
Okay.
If when I took the test in the spring, again, against the national norm, when I took the test again in the spring, I scored at the 45th percentile.
Okay, so you're saying this is an improvement on percentile, not an improvement on their score.
They're
Score-
linked.
They're kind of-
Their
They're-
score,
yeah.
the score is
Right.
a
Yes,
reflection of
yes,
that.
because the score expectation goes up, but then it also looks at the national performance. So again, in theory, every kid should go up, right? That's the idea of we do this. But yeah, so it's one of those things that they're linked.
Yeah, so we're not saying that 9% of second graders scored worse at the end of the year than they did at the beginning of the year. That's not what that means.
Okay,
It's
that's
that-
what
it's
I
that
was
they're-
thinking.
It's that they're making gains in compared to all the other kids in the country are taking the same set of tests.
Okay, thank you.
Well,
Now I get it.
And the hardest part of all this, I know we had a conversation, and I know you guys as parents and board members, like, it's hard, especially in my role, not to see just data points. But each data point is a kid, and each kid has a story. Again, some of them are going through really tough things at home. Some are absolutely thriving and just blowing everybody's socks off. And like, it's one of those things that, so each one is a piece of that. And again, Paula could talk about each of those 8th grade kids way better than I could, because she deals with them every single day and in 100 different capacities. And so again, it's part of it. That's what's tough, is that this is the stuff that outward people look at. Okay, it's a judgment for a school. Like, how are you performing? And it's really just a piece of that kid and what they're doing, what they're capable of. But unfortunately, it is what people look at and they see. And it does matter, because we do want them to be good test takers and performers. And again, I see your grade, you have a B. Why are you scoring so low on fast grades? Or it's one of those things. That's where we start trying to unpack that culture. Is it effort? Is it care? Is it burnout? It is one of those things that we start trying to understand that kid a little better.
I think that we can definitely take some additional time to elaborate on what that 8th grade math looks like, and maybe at a follow-up presentation, you and Paula can bring us up to speed on what that is and what that looks like, what the data is, and what the path is.
And I can get you that 8th grade group from last year. I can get you the data tomorrow.
Yeah, I'm curious what their last year looked
Yeah.
like. I'm also curious what our now 9th graders looked like. Last year, we see that same fall off. I feel like I understand a range, but it's hard to look at a range of, 89 down to 74 and then see a 44. They cannot have.
Yep, understandable.
But I look at it, they figured out a long time ago, these do not affect their grades. I mean, if they're taking a test just because they say you gotta take this test, I'm sorry, I'm not gonna put my best effort into it, but if I've got a, history test tomorrow and I want a good grade, because whatever, I mean, that's, instant feedback. If I study, I get a good grade,
Right.
mom and dad are
But
happy, I'm happy.
why 7th grade to 8th grade? Like, the 7th graders know that too. And
Not
9th
as
graders know
much,
that.
because they already know this test, once they get to high school, what they did at Northbrook doesn't really matter.
So I had an 8th grade math teacher come to me one time at one of my previous jobs that I did, and she argued with me and said, "We are not doing this anymore because my scores are so low and this doesn't reflect me." It was a really big argument because she was trying to explain to me that that's why their scores were low. They're in 8th grade. It's not she wanted to know why she had to keep doing it. I didn't have a great answer for her, so.
Again, I would
Yeah,
just
yeah.
argue
I see what
that
you're saying.
everyone's an eighth
Yep.
grader though.
Yeah.
They're all,
All
that
across
district,
the board.
this
Well,
district,
and-
like,
The reality is there's probably 10 different answers why.
Right.
But the important thing I think what you're saying is there something
Is there
systemic
a
or
trend?
From it.
cultural
Is there a
from our side of things that we can try to solve and fix? Because again, we can't control what happens outside. We can't control what's inside a kid's head, but we can control our program. We control how it's delivered. And
and in our district, we have one eighth grade math teacher, right? Like, I mean, we only have one at a time, so I think we have
Yep.
to keep a different lens on than districts that have
Yep.
multiple teachers, because if something's not working and.
well, we're gonna have
A new one
next
again,
year,
right? Yep, so I think that's just another lens we have to keep an eye on.
For sure. No, we would love to continue the conversation.
All right, sorry, that's, I know we went way off of what you were hoping to.
That's
present.
right. We're
Hey,
here to
that's
answer
what's good,
questions.
trends and
Hey,
cultures, that's good.
Anytime that we can dive into the nuts and bolts
Data.
of teaching and learning and what kids are doing, those are great conversations.
I do still think too, though, like, I would like, you know, and you're gonna dig deeper on some of this fast bridge testing, especially on the eighth grade, but I do still think at some point, I know we've talked about this multiple months in a row, about really wanting to dig in and look more at that special education piece and where they're performing, because I believe we brought some scores to us when you presented several months ago too, that we were kind of like their growth within our own program looked like it was on track, but their growth compared to students' growth scores comparing, which might have been some old, I don't know if it was IAR testing or what it was, but we looked at that, making sure that we're not just preparing kids, but we're preparing kids so that if they move in or out of this district, that
Yep.
they're not here when they should be here.
Yeah, and I can really say that, so the data that I've seen is that I really think our Fast Bridge data is much more indicative of what our special needs population, where they're currently at. Just because of that, what I'm gonna say, test format lens, that when we have our special needs students who now are taken out of their comfort zone, put in and asked different problems in a different type, in different situation. And so now, even especially in that situation, they have to get over the hurdle of just being able to figure out how to take the test, and figure out what's being asked. And so I think that is gonna help incrementally. But we'll definitely get you some more data on that.
I think we all, I don't wanna speak for everybody, but I feel like we've all had conversations
Yep.
of really wanting to dig more into that performance
Yep.
of that.
And I just have one other clarification. This, like, chart right here, is this just like our special education?
That's just special ed. So if you go to the elementary school report card, and obviously you can go to each of our buildings, and it says like right there, it gives it, yeah, you click into it and it gives you each, so it gives the whole Northbrook score, but then you can go down to the subsets like low income, English learners, yeah.
Okay.
And each one.
Was that the only subpopulation that scored below
Yes.
target?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you guys. Great
Thank
conversation.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Are you doing additional conversation on the curriculum? That's up for action.
We can when we get there, but
Okay.
I don't need Tyler for that. I've been
Okay.
a part of that for sure.
Okay,
Yep.
just wanna make sure.
Yep.
Is that all of your?
Yep, it is. Thank you.
Okay. Board committee reports, we did, it's not really a board committee per se, but the board participating on a committee for the insurance. Met twice,
Yep.
received some alternatives. What is next steps?
So we will continue that conversation in executive session tonight.
Okay.
Yep.
Very good. All right, so if we could move on to 7.1, the annual conference. It's crazy to talk about already.
Right? And so that's no more or less than the fact that the registration is coming up super fast. And so typically what we do is everybody in, and so if for some reason you know that you can't make it, email us sooner rather than later, and we'll.
Cause there's like a free cancellation up to a certain point,
Yep.
right?
Yep. There is.
Late, it's late this year.
There is. And so, yeah, it's late because Thanksgiving's late. The joint annual conference is always the first weekend of deer shotgun season. Also known as the weekend before Thanksgiving. I don't hunt, but I've lived in rural Illinois my whole life, so.
Okay. So, takeaway, let you guys know if somebody can't, otherwise it's all in.
Yep,
Okay.
for sure.
7.2, tennis court discussion.
Yeah, fantastic. And so, so we have some guests here today to present. And so, Annie and Dick and I had had some original conversations about what we're doing with the tennis courts and the possibility then of having a skate park. At the last meeting, we had the conversation about it, and we raised, and that conversation led into a bunch of different conversations. And so then that conversation led to, well, at the next meeting, let's have some people here who are part of the project, who maybe can give a little bit more about what they're presenting. And so if you want to give us a little bit of a kind of an overview and an update, and then whatever it is that you would kind of like to share with us. Tell us a
We
little
don't
bit.
have to stand
tell-
together and everything.
Tell us a little
No,
bit
she's on
about
vacation, so we got
who you
last
are
minute.
and who you're working with.
So my name is Dick Chavez, and I am kind of the founder, part of a skate park advocacy group called Skate Illinois Valley. And the goal is to try to get skate parks in the LaSalle County sort of repaired for so they're safer and more usable by the community, but then also find places in smaller communities that we can get skate parks installed, or smaller skate parks, or something for the kids to use as far as like skate obstacles in these smaller communities as well. Because if you're a young child and you want to skateboard, if you go downtown, there's nowhere that's legal to skate. It's illegal everywhere. And if you don't have a license, your parents aren't going to drive you to Peru or Ottawa to go to the skate park. So then you just can't skateboard, right? So Mendota, I live here. So we had Naperville had a new skate park installed, and they were kind enough to give us some of to donate us some of the ramps that they were taking out, that they're gonna they got replaced with like modern concrete structures. So we took those ramps, I gathered a bunch of volunteers and got a trailer and drove there, picked them up, and plan was to donate them to a city. Well, of course, living here, I contacted Mendota first, and that's how I got in contact with Annie, and I met with him, and yada, yada, yada. So as far as how we came to the conclusion of using the tennis court, I had my eye on the city tennis court, and I didn't actually know that this was District 289 property over there. But that's sort of where we are now, and obviously it's not being used for anything, so that's kind of why we're thinking that it's a really good spot, because it's going to bring something to the community. It's going to put a use to something that really right now is just kind of an eyesore, and it's going to put it to good use.
Were you here and did you use the one that was installed years ago?
I was not. I'm not from Mendota, but I have friends that did, and so I knew it was out by the lake and stuff, so I know about it.
I have another question, sorry.
Yep.
You said district, or the city, are you talking about the tennis court that is at Blackstone Park?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, that was like my original target location. Obviously, they've like repaired it and done work to it. They put money into it, which is probably why they don't want to use that. Being honest, I didn't want to involve like what the situation that we have now, to where we have it's a city park or a city place. It's a public place, managed by the city, but it's on someone else's property. Because I'm sure you guys are familiar with the YMCA skate park in Peru. That is a nightmare. It is not taken care of, and apparently it's nobody's responsibility. It's not the Y.
It was the Y, because I worked there when they put it
Right,
together.
but they don't, and they want the city to do it. It's a whole thing. So the issue is that's I wanted to avoid getting into this, but talking to Annie and you guys, like the contract that was drawn up, I think creates more clear roles as to what each person is gonna, each group is gonna play in the maintenance or the upkeep of the park. So I think that's good. I'm positive about that. But I do want to, a couple things. First, I'm gonna just sort of explain to you a little bit more so you guys understand skateboarding, skate culture, skate parks generally, and then also address a couple of the concerns that were brought up at the last meeting. So first and foremost, it's a skate park. I'm a skateboarder, but skate parks now serve, much larger population. If you were to look at like ball sports, you've got like football, basketball, these different things. Skateboarding now is a part of wheel sports, which is skateboarding, bicycles, scooters, inline skates, roller skates, even wheelchairs, all utilize skate parks. So it's a much bigger sport than it was 20, 30 years ago. It's in the Olympics now. So it's, if you want to consider it official, I would say being in the Olympics would definitely make it a very official sport. It's very inclusive. There's no boundaries as far as, your gender, your socioeconomic status, your race. Any of those things really don't play into skateboarding because it's got a very low barrier to entry. It's very cheap to get started. You don't need transportation to, go play with a team. There is no teams. You don't have to make it on the team. You don't have to have good grades. You don't have to have any of this stuff. There's no athleticism necessarily that is involved. It's really based around creativity. There's not really rules. So it's like anybody who's very good or not very good at it can use it as a way to express themselves. So it's very different than most other sports. And this goes to everything, bicycles, scooters, all the different activities that we utilize that type of thing. The last thing is, skateboarding has a there's a black cloud over it. People, for some reason, I guess, coming from the early culture of skateboarding, in the 90s, it's got like this sort of like punk rock thing to it, and like people like to think that it's, all the people are like bad and they're gonna vandalize, and there's always bad things. But like everything, it's grown. I'm an adult, okay? I'm 35 years old. I'm a productive member of society, and I still skateboard, and I grew up skateboarding. And, I skate with him, and he's much younger than me. And that doesn't matter because we're doing the same thing. We're after like sort of having the same fun. And there's very little kids that skateboard as well. So it's not like a teenager thing. It's not like a young kid thing. It really, again, is inclusive to where it's just everybody can enjoy it, and all the barriers just sort of fall out of the way when you're skateboarding. It's unique in that way. Now, do you guys want to like bring up your concerns individually where I can respond to those, or do you want me to just kind of go through things that were brought up at the last meeting?
You can feel free to address those first, and then we can let you know if anything wasn't covered.
Okay, so I think the elephant in the room would be vandalism. Everybody's concerned about the vandalism, and apparently the old park was shut down because of vandalism, but from people who actually used the park, it seems like that's more of like what is talked about as why it was shut down. Although there certainly was vandalism, but there is vandalism generally everywhere, across an entire city, all parks, sports, however you want to look at it, things are vandalized. And it's not right to punish the entire community who is using a space because of something that one person or one group of people are doing. Because the truth is, the people who vandalize the park, like, most definitely aren't the skateboarders or scooters or the people that are using it. The people who are using that park, they don't want it to get shut down, and they don't want it to be ruined. They're there for a different purpose, not to vandalize things. Now, are you going to create a space where kids can go, and some of those kids may do things that are against the rules of the park? Sure, but that's why the park has rules, just like any other park. The basketball courts, the jungle gyms, they all have rules. They close at certain times. You can do this, you can't drink alcohol, blah, blah, blah. And if those rules are enforced, then, there's really no confusion as to what people can do, what can happen at the skate park. The rules just need to be enforced, which seems like it would be by the city, of course. Also, as far as the vandalism, the location of the old skate park, was not very good. Skate park or skateboarding and wheel sports are young, and you know, back then they didn't really know or understand what made a good skate park, or even how to have a skate park like sort of self-police, right? And the old skate park was out of the public's eye, which seems good because it's sort of loud and, you know, people are, you know, out of eyesight. But that's what prevents, you know, crimes from being broken. If you put kids in a space where people aren't watching them, they're going to do things that they shouldn't do. They're going to push the limits, right? Which is why, you know, public parks, there's no public parks that are just out away from everything. Public parks are generally in residential areas, and bad things generally don't happen because you've got normal people walking around, walking their dogs, out on their deck, whatever they're doing. People aren't going to commit crimes when people are watching them because, you know, then they're going to be exposed to what they're doing. So this location really isn't it really isn't an ideal location because it is in a residential area. So there's not negative to that. I think it's more of a positive. Also, again, self-policing. Again, I'm 35 years old. I'm not breaking crimes. I'm going to a skate park to skateboard. And when I was a kid, all the kids were young. Everybody at the skate park was young. So there wasn't an adult figure there to sort of like say, hey, if you mess this up, they're going to take this away from us. Don't do that, right? Now there is. You know, there's people my age, there's people who are 60 who are skateboarding. So when you have that, the culture is different now. So if there are people who are there vandalizing or doing things wrong, there's going to be an older group of people who are sort of there to guide them and be like, look, this isn't the cool thing to do. This is, you know, we were provided this space and we got to take care of it. That also makes the vandalism or diminishes the vandalism or any crimes or anything as far as illegal stuff happening at the skate park. One of the things brought up was like, can it be undone? These ramps in particular, like, can the space be utilized after they're installed? Absolutely. These are like modular ramps. They can be put together, they can be taken apart. And, you know, I think because of the space that this is in, anything that were installed other than the 2 ramps or the 3 ramps that I've got, you know, rails and stuff like that, you know, none of it is going to be a permanent installation. So yeah, any of those things can be taken out and it can be returned to, you know, a tennis court like it is right now. I think that pretty much covers it, if you guys, unless you guys have anything else.
So, I understand that the equipment is movable. What would the ground part, you would like literally just set it on top of the tennis courts there today?
Correct, and that's one of the reasons that the tennis court is ideal. Like New York City, for example, has like converted like 50% of their tennis and basketball courts into skate parks. Because one of the things, like Ottawa Skate Park, for example, is in really bad shape because it was put on asphalt. And asphalt falls apart and breaks, and then people don't use it, which then makes the space sort of fall apart. Being that a tennis court already has really high quality, smooth concrete, it makes it ideal because, you know, the concrete doesn't need to be installed, it's already there, it's not being used. We literally put the ramps on top of it, and now you've got a space where you can skateboard.
Because I thought there was like cracking and everything
Yeah.
on there.
There's areas that are unlevel, and I mean, that's not ideal, but there's sort of like concrete filler that a lot of times, like you'll see in downtown cities and stuff like that, where the sidewalks sink and aren't level, like to basically just kind of like level them out so that they're not like a major safety concern or something. But I mean, it's in much better shape than a lot of skate parks that already exist, so it's not bad.
So I guess my question is, like, originally you said that the thought was that at Blackstone, not even in the tennis court, there is that area that used to, I know back when, because it's 2 blocks from my house, there was what was considered the ice, remember that, Angel, the ice rink? It's that flat, that's,
On the north side of
yeah,
the tennis court.
like
I don't know
why-
if it's still there or not.
yeah, it's still there.
Okay.
Why is, like, what was the reasoning to go totally away from one of the parks?
I personally do not know anything about what you were
Okay.
talking about, so I don't know the condition or the size or anything, so I can't speak to that. For me, again, the reason the tennis courts typically are the target is because of the smooth, high-quality concrete that already exists there. I would imagine an ice skating rink probably is.
It's not really an ice skating
Yeah,
rink.
it's a
a flat area that they made it, and I said it was the ice skating rink many years
Right,
ago.
so it's probably not super smooth, high quality concrete, so I mean, there's always, that creates a challenge, putting in, and I don't know the size of it, so maybe the size isn't ideal, but, I went back and forth with Annie on this because, like I said from the beginning, I sort of wanted to avoid like a two-party relationship with the skate park because I've seen how that's affected Peru Skate Park. And really, the city was not, as far as grants and stuff, like Ocelot grants and stuff, that's all like tied up by the city, so there's no way that they can use something like that. And they really didn't have any other spaces that were going to be available or a budget to pour concrete, which is why we've sort of ended here. And I, understand that there's like a length to the term of the contract that you're discussing, and the hope is that we install these here, everything goes good, people enjoy it, and hopefully more kids and more people, because it's in the community, are able to find the sports that they like and enjoy them. And then, the city would be more apt to move forward with spending some of their own budget into installing something that's more permanent. And I don't know if, this is all way future, but, I know that, again, like an Ocelot grant is mainly a land acquisition grant. Although it's used for like rehabilitation of parks and stuff, it's actually a land acquisition grant. So I don't know in the future if it did work out well in this location, if there's a way that part of that property, if it's not being used by you guys, would then be able to be acquired by the city and used as a park. But obviously that's future stuff. And like I said, the hope is that this stuff gets installed. It's not really costing anybody much at all, and the whole community gets a free skate park. So I mean, it's win-win-win for everybody, which is pretty rare, I think, in a lot of things nowadays.
I have one more question, and I think I brought this up at the last meeting. Has anybody out of the group contacted those neighbors in that area and asked what their opinions?
We have not, because that usually opens a can of worms for failure. Because if you go to a neighborhood of people and you ask them, do you like how your neighborhood is now, or would you like, a bunch of kids in your neighborhood? Most of those people are gonna, even if they do say, oh no, it's no big deal at first, well then they start thinking about it, and then they start thinking about, the sort of snowball effect of a lot of the negative things that they don't want. And then when we go to the city to get these things passed, then you have a whole army of people who have sat and sort of come up with reasons why they don't want something. Which the issue is that with skateboarding in particular, or skate parks in particular, that's a big problem. There's not, mobs of people against putting in baseball fields or against putting in basketball courts. And this is a challenge that the skateboarding community faces. Again, there's a sort of a black cloud over those sports. And for some reason, when it gets brought up, the longer the community has to sort of like sit and ruminate on the possibility, the larger the group of like negative stuff grows. And that's sort of why we avoid it. Now, I wouldn't be opposed to that if that's what it's going to take to get it done, because I think that just like I am, with you guys here today, I've done this in Ottawa. I've sort of built up, a lot of information as far as how to combat a lot of the concerns. So, I wouldn't be shy about that at all.
You're good. So my question, right now there's a fence around it.
Mhm.
Skate parks aren't fully enclosed by a fence though, right?
Typically, yes, they are. Modern skate parks they're actually starting to move away from the fence, but, previously, yeah. I mean, Ottawa Skate Park, Peru Skate Park, Oregon, pretty much any skate park local around here is
So you
enclosed.
feel like the way it is right now, it's totally fine?
Yeah, I think it would
Just
be.
removing nets, strapping on equipment, and we're good to go.
Correct. And whatever the city, I think the city has some sort of plans as far as like who's gonna assemble the equipment and to make sure that it's safe and possibly like repair some of the equipment that it is used. So some of the equipment needs to be repaired right off the bat. But other than that, yeah, pretty much.
So I think liability was our number one concern. Is that covered in the agreement? The city assumes all insurance liability and everything with the park?
Yeah, we would not have any liability, we would not have any additional cost.
So obviously the liability would fall on the city, but there isn't liability, just like a public park. Obviously a public pool, there is liability to that because there are lifeguards on staff. So anytime the city is staffing somebody to be present to ensure the safety of people, then there's liability. But just like a public park, anybody is free within the rules of the park to go there and do whatever they're doing. If somebody gets hurt, the city doesn't get sued unless the city is inherently responsible for, a hole in the middle of the ground that they didn't take care of or something like that. But typically, a skate park, there's a sign when you go there. The sign says, skate at your own risks, skate within your own abilities, wear pads if you feel you need to wear pads, be safe. And if somebody goes and they break their arm, well, they knew that they were getting themselves in that situation, and the city wasn't, they warned them, and the city wasn't actively paying somebody to be there to keep them safe, so the city is not liable, just like they're not at a public park.
And again, any MOU that is crafted, we can have whatever we want in it. It's our property, and so if we're going to have the city use it for some amount of time, whether it's, maintenance or trash or surveillance or however, we can craft that however we want. We're literally in the driver's seat on this conversation.
So one thing that I'm thinking off the top of my head, I'm trying to think of like other sporting locations in our town, and like I've been at the soccer fields a lot lately because my kids have soccer practice and whatever, and I see high schoolers, like I actually videoed one the other day, but I couldn't get a good video, but like just flooring it through that area, like speeding and revving up their tires and doing donuts and whatever they do. Like, what kind of situation are we in with like parking? Because they're not just using the tennis courts, and they would be using like the parking like by our track and like tearing that up. And I mean, not the skaters necessarily, but like kids that come to hang, like if it becomes a hangout place and now that's like a place to, I don't know.
Yeah, we could and would definitely have defined parking, have defined hours, have defined access. Yeah.
Lighting, lights on that side, I don't think that's.
There's no lighting on that side.
Well lit at all.
I mean, I would assume, and again, we haven't had any of these conversations, but I would assume we would have to close at dusk because there's no lighting.
Correct, and that is like the YMCA park in Peru, for example, is they don't actually close it anymore, but it does close at dark, and there's no lights.
Yeah.
So Ottawa Skate Park is open 24/7. There's lights there, but that's different.
So, I know everybody says that it wasn't used, but like, I was here for a track meet, Paulo saw me at, and I think I even mentioned it to Paulo about how there was people over there actually utilizing, playing tennis. They were playing tennis on the day that we had the track meet. So, there were people that walked over from the neighborhood, like, I would hate to take that away from them, if that's, you know what I mean?
I would say,
I think there was a survey done that showed something like 25% of the kids wanted a skate park, is something that Annie passed on to us. In our first meeting with Annie, she asked our advice of how to combat people that have a negative perception, I guess, and not that you necessarily do, but I really just want to encourage you to be careful of how you're voicing this to the community, like addressing the neighbors, If you go out and continue this voice that they're just gonna wreck it, it's loud, they are a nuisance, it's a waste of time, that's not ever gonna change the stigma, and we are doing so much work to change that stigma. Ottawa is in the process of approving a beautiful skate park that people will travel from all over to come to because they don't have any other options. And so that's why our group is here, is to try to get all of these questions so that we can do our research and try to help the kids first and foremost. But I just wanna say that because I know you guys are gonna move on and have other things. I really encourage you to look at Fargo and DeKalb. Again, beautiful space, an old theater that has been transformed into an indoor skate park that every third week he has to go on Sundays because it's the old guys session, it's the 35 and up crew, okay? They have children's classes, one-on-one. And I know that, you know, this one that we've gotten as a donation might not suit everybody's needs, but I really think that it's a great opportunity for Mendota to have a spot that the kids from Ottawa can come over to. The kids from DeKalb can come over there because even, it might not be the biggest, brightest, and best one, it's still fun for them because in Mendota, you cannot skateboard anywhere. In Ottawa, you cannot hardly skateboard anywhere. We're part of the artisan market over there, trying to spearhead the art park within the skate park, which is something that we've also been invited to kind of talk to Mendota about with Reimagine. And I just had to speak up, and I hope that you guys are really open-minded and optimistic. As a mom, trust me, when we were together, I was the little cheerleader princess and he was the skater boy. And when I first opened my eyes to that, back in the day, it was intimidating. You know, it looked a little rough around the edges, but I can tell you as a parent, these places are very safe. They are very well supervised when the community has that as their voice. There's nothing that our group can really do other than try to educate the kids. That's why we invite them to come to any of these things, to show them that it's just a bad, you know, there's just a bad background to some of these little niche groups. Another thing that's gonna be huge in Ottawa is we're looking at incorporating some handicap accessible equipment. There's all kinds of things you can do with that just to get the seed planted for you when we do try to approach for a new skate park here in town. There's a large group of kids that are not being accommodated in any way, and although I'm very happy to hear somebody use the tennis court, there's a huge group of kids that have nothing better to do than probably get into trouble or be on their phone. And so if one, you know, elderly group needs to go to another tennis court, and for the sake of 40 kids that might be interested in real activity, I have a child on TikTok for 10 hours a day. I understand the struggle. So those are my little snippets. We have an email set up, we have a Facebook page that you guys can go to, but I really encourage you, look at some of the surrounding skate parks. Sandwich just got a brand new one, all concrete, and they're not having all of a sudden, like some sketchy crew of kids come in and just demolish the place. So, that's what I got.
To directly answer your question, I mean, Mendota's got 2 tennis courts and they've got 0 skate parks. So, you know, if somebody was utilizing, again, I don't see people utilize it often, but if somebody is utilizing it, I doubt that there's enough people to utilize all like 4 or 6 courts at once when we've got 0 skate parks. Also, it's not illegal to play tennis in the parking lot downtown. It is illegal to skateboard anywhere. So therefore, there is no space for skateboarders or scooters or anything.
I have 2 questions. One, that actually brought up a question. Why? Like, why is it illegal?
It's
Is that something you're looking at?
It's a negative
trying to-
stigma.
right. The stigma is that like skateboarding is vandalizing stuff, right? But really, it's not. You know, it's less often harming the environment rather than just looking at the environment in a more artistic way, right? You've got a ramp and some stairs. Most people walk up and down them, and a skateboarder looks at them, and they sort of reimagine how to use these spaces that we've built around us, which is what skateboarding is about. It's about the creativity. But again, the negative aspect of it from the 90s, it was punk kids and they're vandalizing things, and that's why there's, you know, signs everywhere. There are no rollerblading, no skateboarding, no bicycle riding. And it's like, really, like, it's not, they're not hurting anything, you know? And sure, somebody could get hurt doing that, and could they sue the business? Yeah, but I mean, someone could do the same thing, you know, riding a pogo stick on their stairs. I mean, but there's not a sign specifically to prevent that, and it's just sort of how the stigma is with the culture, and that's you know, that's the battle that we're fighting, and that's why I started this group, to have these discussions, to sort of shed light on some of that stuff and try to help out as many communities as I can to sort of, again, it's an Olympic sport now. The fact that it's an Olympic sport, but there's hardly any skate parks that are around for people to use is just crazy.
One of the other concerns I just want to bring up, and by the way, I hope it does work out. I think we're just trying to be, you know, as stewards of the taxpayers, make sure we have, like, especially the liability piece, and like, what happens if something breaks? What happens if someone does get sued? Like, all of the you know, moments with it. But and one of the concerns we brought up was that we raised a lot of money and partnered with a bunch of people to be able to resurface the track that is adjacent to that area. Was there any, I know we had some concerns with potentially like kids riding bikes around the track or using the track in other ways, like strollers on the track, different things. Like, do you feel like there's, I know you mentioned like that it's often a wheel sport, people might come ride bikes at the park, might, you know, rollerblade at the park. Do you feel like there's any sense of concern around it being adjacent to that and what that can do to that track surface? Like, does it look like it's just an extension, like one more thing to ride around?
I mean, typically tracks are sort of like some sort of gravelly type of rough.
Ours is brand new and it's really nice.
It's all weather.
What's it made out of?
It's an all-weather track.
It's like a composite.
Yeah, I don't know, but typically, I mean, if there's a skate park, they're probably not gonna wanna skate on the flat track because it's flat.
So we just want to bring that up as one of our concerns, because
Yeah.
it was like well over $100,000.
Well, I've been watching him skateboard. We got together in '03. Okay, so it's 20 years with this guy. They usually like to jump up on things and fall.
Yeah.
Most of the time. They usually don't hit the trick. So going long, straight, and smooth, there's not enough bruising and fun in that, I would assume.
They could do that on the roads.
But I mean, I would have the same question. I totally understand the question, of course.
Something that I did miss that I wanted to mention, and you guys had sort of talked about it in your last meeting under a different context, which was about possibly using that tennis court for like PE programs. There is quite a lot of groups that are working to get skateboarding, wheel sports, scooters and stuff put into PE programs as sort of like an alternative activity during PE. So like, you know, kids don't want to play blah, 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 whatever it is that they're doing, that there's like alternative things that they can do. I don't know if it being on your guys' property would like sort of open that up, but there's a lot of, you know, groups that are like donating the equipment, the helmets and the pads and the skateboards and stuff to sort of get those types of things started. So I mean, that is an opportunity for you if that's something that you guys were looking at or interested in doing. And just, I think the last thing that I want to say is that, you know, and like she just said, there's a lot of falling in skating. And I think that without skateboarding, I would not be who I am today. I wasn't the best in school, but, you know, skateboarding is a lot of failing. And it teaches you that failing is a part of success, which there's not a lot of things that just inherently teach you that. But skateboarding is one of those things, because you will skate for hours and hours and fall and scrape your elbow and get hurt to do one thing that nobody else sees and nobody else does. It's very pure in that aspect, that it teaches you all about failure and being determined to accomplish a goal. And I think that that is something that everybody could learn. And for that, I think that it is something that you guys should strongly consider. Any other questions?
I think most of our questions at this point would just come in working with our attorney and/or their attorney on like making sure that all of that liability and cost and maintenance and security and all of those other boxes. I think most of our concerns were around the logistics partnership with the city.
I don't know if they want to say anything, but that's all that I've got.
I got the thing. I jotted some notes down, and I wanted to hear what he had to say first. And I just really want to kind of touch on a couple of things. I know Holly had mentioned, you know, that there was somebody playing at the tennis courts the other day, and I was going to say the same thing he did. We have multiple tennis courts. We have many baseball fields. We have volleyball courts. Even the chalet has sand courts now. We have sand courts. We have places for the kids to play football at. And he's right, there is no place for kids to skate. And I've watched this for a while. Both my boys skated, and TJ was 7 years older than Sam, and the culture has changed. It's very different from when TJ skated to where Sam skated. Since he's been skating at the park, since he met Mr. Chavez, this kid's out there helping repair skate ramps. He is cleaning up the parks because, like he said, the Y doesn't do it. He's posting things on his Snapchat, and I'm like, oh my God, you're out, you got bags of garbage. He's like, yeah, because they don't clean it up. They clean it up. He doesn't do that at home, but he'll do it at So that culture has changed. I mean, it really is different. And I've seen, Sam is not the kid, I wanted him to speak, but he's too shy. I like his, what he said earlier about teaching kids to talk in public, because he has a lot to say. But it has changed a lot. Sam didn't care for golf, he didn't care for football, he didn't care for basketball. You have a group of kids that this is a sport for them. I could sit out and I watched him in the alley. We have a skate ramp just a small ramp in the alley. And for some of you who have been around here for a while, my ex-husband, his dad lives on the corner down here in Meriden Street and Giles, and we had big, huge quarter pipes nailed to our front porch and on the sidewalk, and TJ would skate on that all day long. But he's got a small one in the alley, he's got a rail in the alley, he pulls it in and out when he wants to use it, and I'll come out there sometimes and record him, sometimes he sets it up himself, and it's over and over and over and over until he gets that trick. And let me tell you, I'm watching him and I am invested, like, you're almost there, keep doing it one more time. It is the coolest thing, and it's a one-on-one thing that you don't get from other sports. You don't get that in basketball, you don't get that in football, you don't get that in volleyball. It's you against yourself out there challenging that, and it's motivating. There's a group of kids that would really benefit from having access to that, and he's right. You have to drive to Peru. Sam he would beg people. He'd beg his grandparents, his older siblings to take them to Peru to skate. There is nowhere to skate here. And it's not just, I think the downtown skating, it's not just the stigma with it, but it is bicycles and rollerblades and roller skating. You can't do any of those, and it's a safety thing. You can't be going down business property. But I can tell you, I mean, the signs are everywhere. They're on every store, because if you see a ramp, a wheelchair thing, and there's a kid with a skateboard, they're gonna be jumping in. And, I mean, they're already skating here. They're already skating. TJ and Sam have both skated on the front porch, Northbrook steps. You see skaters out there? Yep. They're in the back. They're already doing it. I mean, if you're worried about liability, they're already doing it. And the cops will tell them to stop. They'll move to another spot. What else did I want to say? Oh, the noise and people. When the football field was there, and I don't know if they still do junior tackle there, but there's already large crowds of people. There's already large numbers of kids. There's already a high volume of noise, and you are not gonna have that level at the skate park, not even close. I asked Sam, I said, how many kids do you see at the Peru Y? Usually 2, sometimes 10. But that's nothing close to what you'll see at a football game. Vandalism at the old skate park. I remember the old skate park. That's where TJ skated. At the time that skate park was there, it was nothing like it is now. With plumbing and the sinks and running water and the concession stand, because it's now all soccer fields. It wasn't like that. I think at the time they took that skate park out, there was really nothing to vandalize. If anything, they probably spray painted something there, like on the ramps, but there was nothing else there. Vandalism has continued long after that skate park has been removed. Mostly they removed that because of disrepair. It just became, people weren't taking care of it. People weren't taking care of the ramps, it began to fall apart and they removed it all. But that vandalism word has lingered for years now. What else? I think that might be all I really had to say. I just would really like to see another alternative. We talk a lot about inclusion. We talk a lot about giving kids something to do in this community, And there's that whole subset of kids that nobody wants to deal with. We throw all the money at football, baseball, we have travel leagues, we have all these sponsored teams, and the skate kids have nothing. And this is, that tennis court's an eyesore right now. It really is. And you've got an opportunity to do something with it for very little money. Just my thoughts.
Thank you. Okay, I would just like to echo what I said before. I don't think there was a negative. At the last meeting, we were surprised because we had no idea it was coming. Kind of like, wait, what? What's happening? And then all the questions around just the liability, the cost, if something does break and things go in disrepair, who fixes it? And the agreement's only gonna be for a year, and then 13 months from now, something happens, and now all of a sudden we have to take district funds and allocate them for public park use, and like, kind of becomes that moment of what's in our jurisdiction and what's not. But I think all of that just comes down to the way that the agreement gets crafted, not the core idea that it shouldn't be here.
I would like to say also commend the board because of your video recording now and your online board docs. I was able to go back and watch the section in the minutes where you had your discussion, which was very helpful. Because I just learned about this meeting like a day ago. And so I was like, wait, what's going on? And I kind of reached out to Dick and asked him some questions, and to Sam's always like, I don't remember, I don't know. But anyway, I was able to get a lot of that information. It was very nice to have that access to that.
Pretty cool.
All right, well, we will, next steps wise, work between
Yep, I'll
legal
continue,
and.
yep, I'll continue those conversations, with legal and with the city, and we'll get something, drafted to you, early, so you can take a look at it for the next meeting, and have additional
So-
conversations.
Do we think that it's like the next meeting is when you guys would be deciding on that?
Correct.
Okay. Just the reason, this isn't your guys' problem or your guys' fault, but the ramps are on my property, and I've gotten 3 extensions from the city police, because even though the city asked me to bring them here so they can look at them, I'm getting ordinance tickets for it. So
Maybe they should put it in one of their buildings.
that's what I tried.
Well,
Sorry.
Yeah.
well, if I could get the
I
trailer
agree.
back, it would have been gone.
Sorry.
Because
Yeah, I
it's been a
agree,
month.
but the issue is that the city was like, well, let's see what they say, and then obviously you guys didn't even know about it, so it's taken so long to get to this point. Now apparently I've got till the 31st before I get a ticket, so I just wanted to get a time frame from you guys so that I can talk to Annie.
Can you make
and-
that part of your conversations with the city?
So.
Do you have that power?
Here's my
Okay,
idea.
so-
Well, I mean, bring it
Tell,
up.
So-
give them back the tickets since
so
they're the ones
if-
that wanted you to get the stuff.
Yeah.
We tried.
If-
They
if-
said
Sorry.
that if they
In-
start bending rules for one person, we'll have to start bending rules
If
for
in a straw
everybody,
poll,
so.
This board is saying, as
junk
long
bills.
as all of the logistics work out and the agreements, then this is something that we're interested in doing. If I have that straw poll directive, then I can do a lot of things.
Is there anyone opposed to it if all of those liability and legal
My only
situations?
one other question was, she had said that 25% of the kids per Annie's survey were interested in a skate park. I'm just curious what the other interests were and if that would be a better accommodation route to go, not that anything's happening.
I don't know the answer to that, but I do know that that from what I've been told, skate park was the number one response.
It'd be nice for them to share that with.
I can see if I can have or share
I
that.
think you'll see that, I think once there's a skate park here, you're gonna see that interest go up. Because you have that whole group of kids under 16 that can't drive. And that's another thing for them to do. But right now, they can.
Yep.
So, I guess, like, I didn't have necessarily mean to imply, if I did, that I had like a stigma against skateboarding. I was thinking of like just where kids hang out kind of thing. And yes, the liability, but my mind is thinking, okay, we are in charge of like paying for things. And so that was kind of what I was getting at, was like, if the parking lot gets torn up by something that's not one of our functions that we host, like a track meet or whatever, like, do we then have to pay for repairs on our parking lot? And that's kind of where I was going, is like, how does that affect us as school board members making decisions on paying for repairs on something that we're now sharing, but we're not hosting. We're not hosting
Yep,
the skate events.
And all of those provisions would be addressed in an MOU. And so when we draft that, we'll make sure that that's a part of it.
I think some of it though is addressed, I mean, kind of precedent setting because of the way we redid the track. We partnered with a private citizen group who fundraised for the track, Friends of the Track group, to help supplement the cost of it with the intention that that would be a community use area, that we wouldn't like police who could or couldn't use it. So I feel like in some ways we
And I
maybe
wasn't
set-
around for that part,
Yeah.
so that.
So we kind of feel like we kind of opened that can
Okay.
already in some ways, because it's like you can come there and you can use that area for anything. So I feel like from that perspective, we maybe already covered it. I was thinking more like somebody comes in, puts all this great stuff there, starts breaking, and then who's responsible for the cost of taking it out and putting it back, and you know that piece of it more. Like I just want to make sure that that the agreement is long enough that if things start to get broken, someone will fix it, and it won't be that something broken just sits there and it does become you know, a bigger thing. So.
Yep, for sure.
I also may be in the minority in my thought process, but without a light and closing at dusk, and to me, it's the dark when you wanna know where the kids are. Meaning, I would like a light there. I'd say I know I'm in the minority.
Well, I would like a
Not
light.
that necessarily that we would be installing it, but down the road, like if they're doing something and they're out blatantly and having a good time, why you're sending them out into the dark right afterwards, you know? That's my thought.
Would we, I don't know how this would work or if it would be a thing, but would we like surveillance of the
I believe that
grounds?
would be done, but that would be done by the city, not us.
The city does that now at Lake Kakusha. They have solar cameras out there. I don't know if you know that, but they're there. Because they've had problems out there with kids on four-wheelers and bikes and stuff.
And I believe we would have an MOU that they would have a similar model.
Okay, awesome. My kids are too little to do hanging out, so.
Give it time.
And we live out in the country, so good luck in there. Till you can drive.
Yep. I can take care of all that.
Okay, yeah, thank you.
So there, I just want to make sure no one had any concern. I think like if all of it is wrapped up in the legal agreement, is there any, do we at least have a majority to continue down the path? Holly, do you feel like you want to answer, or are you just staring in space?
I just want to make sure we have our own ducks in a row.
For sure.
So you're supporting the concept?
I'm supporting the concept, but I still believe that we need to communicate with those in that neighborhood. Because I would want, if I lived in, if the tennis court currently, I know that's a tennis court and now it's gonna become a skateboard park, I would want.
Do you think you would have felt the same way if they had gone after the Blackstone Park?
Yes.
I don't know that the noise and all that also, it might not be relevant if the park is closing at dusk. Because a basketball court is not silent, I can tell you that. Motocross, Megatrack, it's not.
Well, I know, I've met motocross
So
in my
I
neighborhood
just wanna
too,
make
but-
sure that for once we're, we're standing behind these kids. And these are what the people are gonna, this is all they're hearing. Not, we're excited for the opportunity, this is great for the opportunity, we're thankful for the opportunity. It's, well, we might wanna ask a handful of people that could very well move out tomorrow. Us personally, we're on, like you guys, we're on a limited time frame. So if they don't move, we have to offer them to another town. Even Oglesby is interested, and that's not that far away. Because we don't wanna be the group that stirs up a pot. We're just trying to help a community. We thought we'd start with our community. I have neighbors that from literally May 30th on Memorial Day until Labor Day, they light off one singular firework at 11 p.m. It wakes up the dog, it wakes him up, he's gotta get up at 4 o'clock in the morning, nothing makes me more mad. Nobody does anything about it. So I mean, the kids, maybe the skateboard being a little bit loud on a metal ramp, she's got a metal ramp in her backyard, clearly it's not gonna be that much of a nuisance, and I understand wanting to be that compassionate person, in the neighborhood and not cause a huge ruckus, but I would really, think about how we can help these kids out. There's only a few locations in town that we can put this stuff. So if we're gonna let, you know, a little bit of noise, maybe until 8:30 p.m. when kids are getting exercise, then we might wanna question the neighbors.
So we'll move forward with
Yep, I'll get on it.
conversation.
Yep, for sure.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
guys.
Thanks so much.
Okay. Item 7.3, district daycare.
District daycare.
That's me. These are my notes, it'll be very quick. I don't know, at some point in the middle of a ad council meeting, I was like, why don't we have a daycare? It's been in the back of my head, and it's just through listening to teacher conversations. Daycare's really hard, and daycare's really hard birth to 5, to find the babies to 2, to find somebody to do the daycare. I brought it up, we kind of talked about it, we decided to explore. Annie is gonna be talked about again tonight, because the number one problem, obviously, is we don't have a space. That's gonna be our number one hurdle. So, what did you say?
Boiler room.
There you go. That's that extra $500,000 of removing it, though.
200,000.
Great selling point for a daycare.
There you go.
Such a
It is
beautiful
dungeon, the dungeon room. I'm all in. So, honestly, Brad has been great. We have made a few phone calls to schools. Earlville has been wonderful. That started the conversation. They said if we were to do it again, and we had a YMCA in our town, we'd call the YMCA, because YMCAs are licensed through DCFS to have daycares. Their employees are all licensed through DCFS. It's really your biggest hurdle are your people. So I talked to the YMCA, they were all in. A place, here we go, we're back to the place. So the YMCA said, call Annie Short, because she's looking for all sorts of places for us to do these activities. So I called Annie, I already know her, she's in every week for Reimagine Mendota with my 8th graders. And so she came, we had a good talk, and she said, boy, do I have the place for you. She said, let's go look at the Lutheran home. So the Lutheran home is purchased, and they're trying to rehab it, and they're trying to turn it into something. They have quite a few ideas, they have quite a few people interested, but they were super excited at the thought of a daycare. I went on my own and looked at the space, and then Brad and I went together when they had their open house. I don't know anything about daycare, I'm gonna be honest. I want it because I want teacher retention, and I want people who live in this community to have a safe, delightful daycare. So after looking at the Lutheran home, I think we agree it's a really good spot. You know, transportation is gonna be an issue, but that's way down the road for me. The next step was we sent out surveys. So we sent out essentially 2. We sent out to the school communities. We sent to the high school and our district. Full-time birth to 5, people who are interested from a 7:30 a.m. to like a 5 p.m. daycare, between 15 to 17 kids, just between the 2 school districts.
You're talking staff, right?
Huh?
You're talking staff?
Staff.
Okay.
Then Annie put it out to just the city, like the water department, the parks department, the whatever, just within the city, and Black Brothers. She thought, I'll put it out there and see what that looks like. There's about 10 more kids, birth to 5, that would be interested. So we're looking at about 25 to 27 kids right now that would be interested in that, to get them in there. It's going out to the whole community, I believe tonight or tomorrow, to see what that interest looks like. The space is huge. You can have as much space as you want depending on what you need. It needs work. It doesn't need a lot of work. It didn't, I mean, I don't know.
It just needs cleaned up.
Yeah, it needs to be cleaned up, little roof repair. and then you just have a really great space.
So the way that this is kind of structured, I guess by law, regulation, whatever, is in the 0 to 5 space, you kind of have to have you have to have 3 rooms, right? There's a 0 to 6 month room, a 6 month, I think it's to 2 years, and then a 2 to 5, right? And so, and you can have kind of 10 per room, per adult, that kind of thing. And so, kind of like the base model, as it were, would be, we kind of need 30 kids that were close to it to kind of fit in and to kind of get this off the ground, right?
Taking up the entire space or just partial?
And what?
Oh, just,
no.
I'm gonna tell you what, this.
The
we-
Lutheran,
we would-
Yeah, it
we
had
would-
130
That's what I
rooms.
was,
We wouldn't take up 10% of it. We would
right,
take
no,
up
I've been in
80%.
there, so that's why.
it is ginormous.
I'm pretty sure that when you go in one side, in one door, when you come out the other door, you're in Earlville.
Well, because they put on a huge expansion when they tore the 7 houses down.
I
They tore
was,
7 houses.
I have never been in there, and the first time I walked in, and the guy who's kind of organizing it all met me there, and it was never any, I was like, by the time we got to my space, I was like, oh my gosh, are you kidding me? It's huge.
Well, what it was is that the whole 6th Avenue all had houses. And then they tore, and then they added on and all that. So I have a question regarding that. So what is the thought, even if it's just like, how many of the rooms you're thinking? What is the thought, because obviously we have all the space limitations and if that's gonna be a 0 to 5, moving preschool.
So I'm gonna
Sorry.
say, no, that's a great
Because
idea.
there's no space.
That's a great idea. That's a great conversation. You know what else is a great idea and a great conversation? Is, hey, what about for kindergarten through 4th grade, before school and after school? And that's
huge.
That's a great conversation too, right? But all of those are down the road conversations. We gotta get this sucker off the ground first.
So that is actually in the survey, and the amount of before school and after school people are even more than that.
Because as a former teacher, like, my kids were under 5 when I was still teaching, and I needed the day during the day, but then my daughter did preschool right before I quit teaching, and then I was like still doing stuff after school, and I needed the after school too.
Yep, so those are all awesome,
Yeah.
but let's get this,
Right.
let's try to get this thing in here.
I feel like, it's complicated. There is a lot, and there's like a lot of hurdles, and we keep kind of going over them and asking more questions and learning. And I don't think we're gonna run out of hurdles anytime soon, but,
No.
I have to tell you, Jeanette Fruit, who is the principal at Earlville, I've known her for a million years, and I talked to her about it, and she gave me some great insight, and she said to me, if getting anything started was harder than a preschool, I don't know, or a daycare, she goes, I don't know what is. She goes, it was the hardest thing. She goes, and now I don't think about it at all. And she goes, now I have teachers that are being offered more money to go to other school districts, but they're staying because of our daycare.
That's awesome.
And she said it's truly a teacher retention. And I had a teacher today talking about it, and he said, imagine the First State Bank trying to get an employee and saying, oh, our community has a daycare that you can use. Like, that's it. Imagine dropping your kid off at that daycare that is safe and all of those things, and you go to work and then you pick your kid up. So there's a lot of, I know it's a need.
So
And
where does the district fit in? So we wouldn't own the property, we wouldn't employ them, it would all run through the Y, like where is our role?
Okay, so our role is, we would be the banker, we'd be the house. So, people would work for the Y would pay them, the Y would invoice us for their payroll. We would collect money from people, we would pay all the bills. So we're kind of the bank. That's kind of our, at least, and again, this is kind of the working model, right?
Right. It would essentially be a District 289 daycare.
And it could also provide.
But it would have a cuter.
It could also provide,
babies.
It
It
would be
could
our,
also-
our house, our rules.
it could also provide, honestly, instructional support, for the high school students, like for the ones
I
that
was
go
just
to,
gonna say
that like
that
the
next.
IBCC or
Yeah,
the
so that
area
was
career
the other
center.
thing, is it could partner with some ACC things or high school or whatever. You know, and I think one of their goals for that building is a 55 over community, apartment type of thing. It was the start of it. How great would that be? Like, first of all, the area is secure, so nobody can get in or out unless you're
Correct.
part of that. That's number one.
It's
It has
super
its
secure.
own drop-off door, there, nobody's gonna have to hike through. It has its own drop-off door with great parking, we all know that's important. And then it has an outdoor play area that's completely secure. So, there's a lot of good things about the space they showed us. You know, it is what it is, but,
So do we ultimately, so you talked about like 30 kids, but like 10 of them are ours, our employees'
Mhm.
kids.
Yep.
So is the goal then, if we got a whole bunch of other people to come do it, that it becomes a revenue source?
No, I don't,
that it becomes.
I think
A
a revenue source,
source?
I think it's kind of.
Like if Brack Brothers is sending their kids there, who's
Right.
paying the cost of the kid, the parents?
Yes,
Well, I mean, if Black Brothers wants to have that as a perk for their
It's no
employees,
different than they
that's.
do for their
That's
health,
up to
their
them.
health program.
You know.
We would have it as a perk for our employees.
Correct, and typically our employees, and maybe even the high school employees, we would have to work all that out. There would be some sort of a price break with that, typically.
They would still have some
typically-
skin in the game
Oh,
for the cost.
a lot, majority, yeah, whatever, it'd be 20% or something like that, would be their price break.
So it's
what
not
does
so
Earlville
much
pay?
that we want to have the daycare, it's just that there is not a daycare center in the community and we feel like we should be.
An active participant in rec.
Like if the
Early
Y decided to
childhood
rent the
education.
space and have a full daycare, we weren't part of it, like, we'd be like, that's wonderful, but they're not, they're looking for somebody to be.
So, right, nobody's looking to do this but us, and because of the conversations that we've had, the Y would be interested in partnering with us. But this really is the genesis of this entire conversation is teacher retention.
So does Earlville, teachers, what do they pay for their, cause I know one teacher that had job opportunities in other districts and stayed in Earlville.
yeah,
because
I think
of
it
the
was,
daycare.
I'm gonna try to remember because my note's hanging on my board.
So
Visualize it,
they're,
but about 110 a week.
Earlville charges $200 a week. And in the past, they'd had a 20% employee discount, and currently it's 50%. So of the $200, their employees pay $100. Recently, they paid $160 of that $200. So, and we can set that whatever we want. Part of that is a conversation of what is this program doing with respect to coming as close to possible to break even, right? We want to be able to do all of, we can do all of this and provide this service and have it be cost neutral. That's a home run, right? That's really what we're trying to do. If we end up losing a little bit of money to be able to have a teacher retention tool, that's something that we can, that's a pill that we can swallow. But we're not gonna lose a ton of money on this. We're not, if we get to that point and it doesn't financially make sense to do it, then we're not gonna do it. Does that make sense?
I think it's a good idea.
I understand the teacher retention part, I'm supportive of it. Our teacher retention isn't horrible right now, but we're looking down the line of the teacher shortage, right? So I understand
Correct.
we're trying to be proactive in that approach. I guess I would be more interested in hearing, kind of following some of what Holly said, not just the space concern of the preschool, but we talk about early intervention and getting kids at a younger age. And if it's gonna be a school district daycare, I would like to see ways where it becomes an educational resource to the community that is framed in
Early childhood.
intervention and
Mhm.
childhood, and bringing some of those grant resources that are available for those EC programs into that space. I think, to me, our number one O to the community is education, and kids are at the center of all that we do. And I think if we can, I would feel more gung-ho about the idea if we were really trying to keep some, involved in it from a kid perspective, whether that's before and after school programs, partnering with the high school to offer those child development hours, like in all the ways it benefits the educational community and students. I think I would prefer us to be leading with those talking points.
So
Like
it's
we
very
talked about that
interesting
several
when you say daycare, it has to be run through DCFS. That's the only licensing you need, is through DCFS. It has nothing to do with education, it has nothing to do, you
Right.
cannot run a daycare without that DCFS licensing. That's why you can't call it an early childhood, education
Right.
center.
Right.
So you kind of have to, tiptoe around different things. But that being said, truly we're just just looking into it right now.
Toe in the water.
So,
I just think, there is a risk to taxpayer dollars
Yep.
by doing it, and I think if we're doing it under the umbrella of education, child development, early intervention, like all the other, partnering, all the things they have to do with that, to me, it feels more like worth the risk as opposed to a daycare where, like, if we're just looking at getting a discount, there's lots of licensed in-home daycares. We could offer a $100 discount to our staff and know that that's all we were gonna lose, so to speak, if that's all we're looking at trying to do is help them attain childcare. But if it's part of a larger community desire to offer more reliable, safe, non-home-based care with before and after school programs and tying into all the other things, I feel like then I feel more like the school has an appropriate role
Yep, that makes sense.
in it.
well, and that, to piggyback on, maybe my thought is the same as yours, like our current preschool, has kind of limits as far as how many kids are in it. And when I first moved into the community and started having kids, I didn't realize that, and kind of just planned on my kids going to preschool, and then found out that I didn't get into that preschool or whatever. So it would be nice if they're, obviously this is your starting point, but down the road, if preschool could be
Part of it.
Open
To expand the number of
to more,
preschool classes.
Yeah, sure. No, and there's been so many, I've never talked about something more in my entire life than the minute this kind of came up till now, where it's a lot,
yeah,
and it's
a lot of.
it is a lot. So, not having the space here made it really difficult, but finding a space made it really exciting. Partnering with the YMCA and talking about it made it super exciting, and all of those things. So, I liken it to a service for the community. What that looks like is taking care of kids. I don't think of it in any other way. It's just taking care of our community kids and our families. And I think it is a need. So.
And because it'd be DCFS licensed, we would potentially be able to bring options for low-income families that can't find a placement.
Yep.
Where that is fully subsidized as
Mhm.
well, which is, I think, another talking point. And I know we started the conversation, and it's still so early, like you said, toe and dipping early. But I just wanna make sure, as we talk about it, and word starts to spread and all of that we really keep at heart, the core purpose. We started it as an employer retention tool, but I think in a larger, more global perspective, it is taking care of kids, it's providing for families, it is being able to partner on early intervention, potentially growing to offer additional, services. We're working with the high school and whatnot, but I really wanna make sure that we're keeping that at the center, and it's not just an adult thing. It's not just an employee retention thing. 'Cause to me, that's an adult problem. And I wanna make sure that we're keeping our dollars and our risk and our everything on students and kids and families, so.
Good.
So
So good.
you'll just keep us informed as you keep
Yeah,
researching?
we'll keep plugging
Yeah.
along.
We
Do you know what you'll do all summer long?
Sure. I've been to the Lutheran home twice now, who would have
Let's have a
thought?
field trip.
I
on
would
it.
love to go see that space too.
You might never come out.
My sister worked there for 15 years, so I get it.
I just could not believe there's a building that big in this town and I didn't know about it. I mean, it is
Right around
never
it.
ending.
It's deceiving because it looks so small, but
It's
it's, you
big.
can climb
You're
all
looking-
sides.
I think you're looking at it when you pull up and you're like, oh, look at this building. And then you go in it and you are just, I mean, unbelievable how big it is. It's funny.
They don't have any boilers or anything. We're gonna
Ella, have you slept much this year?
What?
Have you slept much this year?
No.
Like me?
June 7th.
Well, I'm just thinking, like, you've had like the year, and now you got this.
Don't get her started.
Okay. She needs more of a stipend
Hey,
than what we're
this is her
getting.
idea.
I know some ideas we're meant to talk about and some you should shut up about.
There you go.
Thanks, everybody.
There you go.
Have a good night.
Thank you,
Nice
ladies.
meeting you.
Nice meeting you, Beth.
All right, moving on to item 8.1 press policy. This is for action. We did first read at the last meeting. Are there any questions on it? No substantive changes?
Correct.
just
Yep.
Grammar and
Just-
references?
Yep.
Okay. If not, could we have a motion on press policy?
I'll make a motion to approve press policy 114 as presented.
One second. No second. You're welcome.
Haas? Landers?
Yes.
Rapp?
Yes.
Comitas?
Yes.
Schrader?
Yes.
Spinoza?
Yes. Okay, item 8.2, if you could talk about it first.
Yeah, for sure. So, big, huge process, just like math was last year. Two different teams, working a lot of hours, examining a lot of materials. So we kind of put, all of our curriculum in two different camps. So one is a K-5 camp and the other is a 6-12 camp. We like to have that K-5 because then we have a similar curriculum across our two bridges. We have a bridge from 1st to 2nd grade from Blackstone to Lincoln and another one from 4th to 5th grade from Lincoln to Northbrook. And so that sets all of that curriculum in place. And so the 6th through 8th grade curriculum was reviewed. We had wonders, something that we didn't like, it wasn't well implemented, it wasn't implemented with fidelity. And so the 6th through 8th grade teachers are going within HMH curriculum. And again, it was the same kind of mechanism as last year. You know, once they decided what it was and they decided what their exact needs were with respect to which pieces out of the a la carte and which professional developments and which online modules. And then Tyler did his, with HMH, there's kind of, because HMH is what we did with math last year, so there was kind of a negotiations to it. And so, after a month or so of negotiations, Tyler got us he landed that plane, I think it was just under 120,000 for 6-8, which is right in the ballpark of where 6-8 math was last year. I think it was 107 or 109, something like that. So it was a really good process. A lot of staff members involved. They examined a lot of different curricula, and they were all in agreement and feel really good about the HMH.
Is there like an official curriculum review cycle that we're going through, like where we expect that it's gonna last us X number of years? before we purchase it?
And so last year's math was a 7-year extension. This is actually going the 6-8 ELA that we're approving tonight will also be a 7-year. So yeah, you think, oh my gosh, $119,000, that's a big number, but it's also the curriculum for 3 grade levels for the next 7 years, right? So then when you break that down, it's less than $20,000 a year for all of that, guidance and direction and resources.
Does it matter, or is it a good idea that this year was the test year for math, and now we're gonna go where they're not quite familiar with that, and then we're gonna add in the English portion as well, that seemed hard.
So, the English, the ELA portion, this English portion is long overdue. The Wonders curriculum that we have had in the past, has not been implemented well. It has not been productive. It literally needs to be replaced. And so, when you look at, because one of the things that we talked about is kind of a phase-in, and we really talked about doing like a year's worth of training, and in grades K through 2 said, no, we're gonna do this now. And so our phase-in is gonna be K2 is gonna hit the ground in August, and then 3, 4, 5 is gonna add some pieces in throughout the course of the next year, and then fully phase in August of next year. So the quote for the Amplify, which is the curriculum that is being used K through 5, that quote is for a K2 implementation immediately. And so then there would be a 3, 4, 5 quote and implementation for the following year.
Which is smart, because then the K-1-2, they've already had it for the year, then, so then when the third through whatever get it, then they've already been exposed to it, and they're gonna see the higher success.
Yeah, we were a little leery about it, to be honest, especially having second grade do it, but not third and fourth. And actually, the interventionists over there at Lincoln, they said, no, actually, this will be really good, so we can learn the interventions at the second grade level and figure out what are the successful pieces to implement, and then go full phase the following year.
Because we went K-5, and it was, struggles. Because you're dropping rigor, and, and everybody's getting to deal with all the stress, and it wasn't good.
Yep.
So we won't then be approving or paying for, second, third, and fourth till next year at all?
3, 4, 5.
Or 3, 4, 5?
Yep,
Okay.
that's correct. That's correct.
Okay.
And so the number off the top of my head, I think for the K2 implementation, I think it was like 158, somewhere in that ballpark. So a large chunk of that will be paid out of title funds in next year's title grant. And so even though the total approval tonight is, north of $260,000, something like that, the 6-8 is a 7-year. The K2 is actually an 8-year, because then next year's 3, 4, 5 will be a 7-year to put them back in the same cycle together. So it's a big commitment, but it's one that I have complete confidence in. Tyler,
And what's the name of the curriculum for K through 5?
Amplify.
Amplify.
Yep, and it's funny because it's a smaller company, it's a growing company, and we went and did site visits at districts that had it, so our folks could have conversations with theirs about, what are the hurdles and what are the benefits and all of that, and which was great because our folks walked away loving it even more. But one of the conversations that Tyler had with some of the other schools is that, Amplify is completely not like H&H. There's literally no negotiations. The price that they tell you, that's the price. And as a matter of fact, Amplify has a state contract with the state of Indiana, and the prices that they quoted us per student are like within pennies of what their negotiated price is with the entire state of Indiana. So literally what their price is what their price is. So, and good for them. I love doing business that way anyway, so.
Was this included in your budget? Had we predicted this approximate cost related to curriculum?
So this will all be in next year's budget, and yes, this was anticipated.
Okay.
At some point, can you share what the, or maybe have Tyler share what the cycles are? Because I remember when I first got on the board, Beth and Dr. School shared like the time frame of when we had what curriculums and how long we've had them. Is that a possibility of them sharing where we're at and like what are we gonna buy like maybe next year? Because as nice it is to get all these new curriculums, it can also be very stressful for our teachers to get one new curriculum one year and then one the next year and then, and that, so.
Yep.
And there's so much, I know we talked about math at ELA, but there's so much more, obviously, with social studies and science and
Yeah.
SEL and
Yeah.
everything else, so.
Yeah, next year is 6-8 science as well. Nope,
Alright.
it's very exciting, super good stuff.
Any other questions on it? Motion, please.
I'll make a motion to approve the textbook adaptation as presented.
Second.
Second.
Roll call.
Espinoza?
Yes.
Schrader?
Yes.
Cost? Yes. Landers?
Yeah.
Rapp?
Yes.
Comitas?
Yes.
You said around 260?
That would be both combined.
Yeah.
Correct.
Okay, can we have a motion, please, to enter into executive session?
For the compensation of
Yeah, I
employees,
got it right
please.
here.
Oh, thank you.
I'll make a motion to move into executive section for the discussion of information related to appointment, employment, compensation, discipline, performance, or dismissal of specific employees of the public body or legal counsel.
In a second,
Second.
and roll call.
Comitas?
Yes.
Rapp?
Yes.
Landers?
Yes.
Cost?
Yes.
Schrader?
Yes.
Espinoza?
Yes. We have a motion to adjourn. Say excuse, I don't know. Adjourn.
I'll make a motion to adjourn at 9:41 p.m.
Okay.
Mhm.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.